Welcome to The Business Behind Your Business, the podcast where we delve into the financial strategies and insights that drive success for small and medium-sized business owners. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and in each episode we bring you expert guests who share practical advice, real-world experiences, and actionable tips to empower you on your business journey. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, get ready to uncover the secrets to success and gain valuable insights into the business behind your business. So as a business owner, you have more experience than you know how to explain. And you've done the work. You've learned the lessons. You've built something. But when it comes time to explain who you are, what shaped you, and why people should trust you, your message, it still feels unclear. And if it's unclear to you, if it's unclear in the way you're presenting it, it's going to be very hard for other people to connect with the value behind what you do. And that's what we're going to unpack today. So we're talking about discovering our signature story, not storytelling as performance and not trying to sound polished or dramatic, but how understanding the moments that shaped us in how we got to where we are today, how that can help other people understand us more quickly, clearly, and then understand the value that we're going to create for them. Look, today I'm excited because I'm joined by Robert Kennedy III, and what I'm really looking forward to in this conversation is that Robert brings such a lot of energy to this space, but more importantly, he makes this topic really practical. And because most business owners do have the experience, they do have the lessons, they do have something worth saying, they often haven't gone through the process of making sense of it so that they can clearly explain it. So when they're talking to other people, the audience there can connect the dots. Look, Robert works in communication and storytelling, and that makes this a very useful conversation for us today and for you, for anyone who wants to speak with more clarity, more confidence, and more impact. Robert, it is great to have you on. I'm really looking forward to unpacking this with you today.
Fantastic to be here, Paul. Hold on one second.
I love it. That is just a taste of things to come, I believe. So, look, Robert, you've got to this point. Look, before we dive into who you are now and what you're doing, when you go back, and this is really important because it's going to phrase a bit of the conversation we're having, but when you look back, what are the things that really shaped you? And what I want to hear here is not the polished version that you're presenting now, but the real you, the real Robert. What are the things that shaped you?
Wow. So there are so many, I would say, seminal moments in my life, but there's a story that I share about how I ended up in this space of communication. And I share the story about I was born on the island of Jamaica. And when I was young, there were people in my house. Some people call them nannies, some people call them babysitters, helpers is what we call them when we were there. And I was a curious kid. My mom says that I started to speak at 7 months old. I would be in full sentences between 7 and 9 months old, she said. And so I talked quite a bit. And so early on, in the 2.5 years of my life, I heard, Robert, you talk too much. At that time, it was Bobby, right? Bobby, you talk too much. You talk too much. You talk too much. Bobby, you talk too much. You should be a lawyer, Bobby. You talk too much. And after a little while, I shut up. I stopped talking. So for the majority of my childhood, probably from 4 until about 16 or 17, I was known as a quiet kid. I didn't talk that much. And I made a decision in my senior year of high school that I was going to shift. Some different things went into that, but I was more intentional about talking. And somehow that led into a career in starting in radio and then in going to teaching high school and then creating several companies and finally being in a space where I do a lot of keynoting and workshops on the topic of leadership and communication.
Wow. So bit of a full circle there. You've gone from the chatty, talkative guy, or talkative kid, to the guy that's probably got told too many times by too many people incorrectly to stop talking.
Yeah.
And then you rediscovered who you really were back in senior high school and college, university. I actually want to pick up on something there, because a lot of people get very discouraged when they hear people tell them not to do something, or that
Mhm.
they don't have the skill or the experience, and they stop. But the reality of it is they actually do have that experience. They just, they don't feel like they can express that to people. And that's why they sort of pull back into their shell and stop telling people about who they are and what they want to do. Is that something that you've seen quite in your experience?
I see it all the time. I see it all the time. People are told that they're not creative. They're told that they're not good storytellers. They're told that what they say implicitly or explicitly, it doesn't matter, or it doesn't make impact in the room. They're told that their voice isn't shouldn't be heard in one way or another. And so people shrink and they stay in what seems to be a comfortable space. Whether or not it's painful is irrelevant. It's what they know. And so they choose to stay there because standing out front leads to being vulnerable, being naked, being open, being wide open to criticism and possibly conflict. So a lot of people would rather be in a painful space of comfort than the discomfort of being vulnerable.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think we certainly do feel that way. But on the other side, and this is something I've said quite a few times, is that I'm often sitting in the audience, so sitting in a conference, sitting in a seminar, watching a webinar, and thinking, I know the material better than the person presenting or telling the story, but they're telling the story. They're having a go. They're getting their voice out there, um, and I'm just thinking through, like, we let that stop us from actually sharing our story. And there's a few other reasons, and look, imposter syndrome is one of the big things. But I think the other thing that and not to sort of be derogatory here for you, but your story, the little boy talks a lot, told to keep quiet, stops. If we look at the influencers and the social media, that's not a fascinating story. That's just how it was. And I think a
Right.
lot of us think, hang on, I don't have the fascinating story. I didn't, go shark diving and lose two limbs, and
Right.
I didn't end up saving the world and stuff like that. So I don't have a great story to tell. But that's not the case.
Right.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not the case. Like what we've gone through, and particularly every business owner has a story. Every business owner has struggles. They're probably not dramatic or uh, movie style drama, but there
Yeah.
is a story there. And is that something that you help people work through
Absolutely.
in what you do? Yeah.
Absolutely. We are doing an event in about a week and a half called the Story Vault Remix, right? And the purpose of that event is to help people uncover, unleash, and unlock some of the stories that you have in your life, and then share some of the frameworks for how to share it and tell it in a way that's more influential and impactful. And we all have stories, and you just said it. So many people feel like I was born with all of my arms and all of my legs. There's this motivational speaker called Nick Vujicic, right? And Nick is was born without any limbs, and he's one of the top motivational speakers in the world. And he tells his story, and people see Nick, and there's like, oh my gosh, Nick, he's got such a great story. He's so resilient. Nick is so inspirational. He's been able to push through all of these things and still live a great life. And we look at our lives and we say, oh my gosh, today I've got a job, I've got all my legs, I've got a car, I've got a house, I've got a family. There's nothing spectacular. There's nothing extraordinary about me. Why would anybody want to listen or hear about me? But the truth is, there's something about you. There's something about every person that resonates or relates to a specific time or an experience that somebody else is having. All of us have taken a test and found it difficult at some point, whether that's a driver's test or an exam in high school or elementary school or secondary or whatever the terminology is, right? We've all done that. We've all been in relationships, and maybe we've had the pleasure or the displeasure of breaking up or leaving or exiting a relationship at some point. We've all had a time where we've tried something, where you try to cook something and you forgot about it and you burned the food, right? My mom used to leave me at home all the time. She'd start the rice on the pot and she would say, okay, Bobby, I'm going out to the store. Just watch the pot for 10 minutes. And I would always forget. And then the rice would burn and she would come home upset because not only was the place smoky, but the food that was supposed to be ready was not. And then her pots were destroyed. Right. So
Yeah.
we've all got stories that resonate with other people because we all have similar challenges in this world. So how did you resonate with that? How did you deal or come back when you failed the test? How did you deal with the nervousness of the driver's exam? How did you manage to get over that relationship? Right? Those are all comeback stories that other people have experienced, and they want to know not only how you did it, but it reinforces to them that you're human, just like they are.
Are those kinds of stories? And as you were talking through that, particularly the rice story, I'm thinking about some of my cooking disasters.
Yeah.
So straight away, I'm thinking, hey, I relate to what Robert's telling me here. I understand what he's going through. What did he do next? Well, what was the next step for Robert, and how did he improve it? And I think like you said, we've all got moments like that where they are very relatable, and I think we ignore that. Yeah, what we've gone through and share, what learned, our experiences. However, I guess sometimes we call them trivial, but they actually tell us a story and they help other people understand or make sense of what we need to tell them.
Yeah, yeah. And businesses do this as well. There is a company called Warby Parker, which is an eyewear company. For those of us who don't wear glasses like that, that's an eyewear company. And if you go to their About page on their website, it shares with you the story of some college kids that they were out camping and then they decided that they were going to go on a hike. They went on a hike and one of the students dropped his glasses, his eyewear, and it broke. Somebody stepped on it, his glasses broke. They came back to camp and this person was having trouble seeing. Okay, made it through camp and they went back to college, and he went to see if he could get some glasses, but found out that the glasses were so expensive. They were broke college students. Glasses were too expensive. So he spent the rest of the semester squinting and trying to see the board, getting headaches because of that, and all of this because the glasses were so expensive. Now, I don't wear glasses, but I do remember the experience of staying in the sun and squinting my eyes, trying to shade my eyes, and how uncomfortable that is after a little while. So I can imagine somebody squinting for an entire 2 or 3 months of a college semester and how uncomfortable that must have been. So this is the story that is on their website. This is their origin story, where the idea for creating glasses or eyewear that is affordable for the average person. That's where that came from. And so you can see how that resonates with people who may not even be in that situation.
Yeah, and that's a great example of something that happened, an everyday occurrence, and they've taken that as a basis for what they've done next. In this case, they've launched their company, quite a successful business, been going for many years now. But I think a lot of the time we have those experiences in our day-to-day business. So what's a practical way that, I'm going to say normal business owner, so an everyday business owner, can take something that's happened to them and use it in the same way? Like most of us have already got the business. We've been working in it. We've got these experiences. We're not going to go and start a new business because, that'd just be crazy at this point in time. How do we take those everyday occurrences and actually use them to share our experience and knowledge?
Yeah. Well, you've got to have a framework, a structure, or a filter to pass this through. Because if you've ever heard, let me say it this way, some people share stories and they're just giving you facts. They're just giving you information. They'll say, hey, I woke up this morning and then I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. And they just shared with you a sequence of events. And they think that because they're sharing real life, that's a story. But stories have some elements. Core stories have context, characters, conflict, and conclusion. Okay, those are the four main pillars or elements of the story. I use a framework called change, catalyst, and no, challenge, catalyst, and change. So the challenge is, what is the thing that is going wrong? What is the element or what is the experience that is not optimal? What is causing trouble at that point? Okay, if you're living your life, or you are on camera, and maybe this was your first time, second, third, or fourth time trying to do some footage online, and you're nervous about it, and so you decide you're going to flip your phone on, but you don't look that well, right? So the challenge is you're not really getting across. And then somebody says to you, or a potential client says to you, hey, I can't really see you that well on camera, or you look a little sketchy on camera. You look like you're in the witness protection program on camera. So the challenge was I wasn't coming across effectively, but now the catalyst is the moment that I realized, oh my gosh, is that how people are perceiving me? Oh my gosh, I need to do something different. So then the third piece of that is change. Now that's what is the process that you undertake in order to make things better or to have a solution for the problem. So challenge, catalyst, and change. If you process any of your regular life stories through that framework, right? It's not and then. It's I was doing this and oh my gosh, I realized this at that moment. And so I started to do this differently.
And there's so many ways that you could actually use that, because I think a lot of people are thinking, when we talk about storytelling, we're talking about the big picture, the on stage, the video, the presentation. Yeah. But really it's those one-to-one conversations as well, where this is going to come up, where, okay, this is a challenge we experienced. This is what we had to do to change it. And this is the outcome that we decided to run with. Yeah. And a lot of times if we framework just like you have there, it's relatable to the person we're talking to. They can understand it. They can see how it affects them or how it relates to them and how they could actually benefit from it. So that's a really clear way of explaining that. And it doesn't sometimes it's those simple stories that we frame it that way rather than the chronological, or I was thinking the AI repetition of here's your story. I go, no, that's not it. Make it relatable. You know, here's the challenge we had. Here's why we needed to change it. And here's what we did, and this is the outcome. That's so much more relatable.
Here's a simple version of that, using something that is nondescript. I don't know about in Sydney where you are, if supermarkets work this way, but there are these little cards that you get that offer discounts at the supermarket, right? And so the supermarket, you'll have maybe a loaf of bread, and then you'll see the bread is $9.99. But if you have the store card and you present it, the bread is now $7.99 instead. So you go to the supermarket. I've gone to the supermarket and I pick up a few items and I go to the cash register and the person says, hey, do you have a store card? And I've gotten to the cash register and I don't happen to have that particular wallet, or I don't have the store card on me, or I don't remember the information so that they can look it up. So there was one particular time that I went and I got to the cash register. I realized that I didn't have my store card in front of me and with me, but the person in front of me didn't have theirs either. And at the end, when the cashier asked, do you have your store card? They said no. But the customer says to the cash register, can you put the store card on my account? Or can you apply your store discount to my purchase? I did not realize until that moment that I could do that. The other times, if I didn't have my card, I was just paying the more expensive cost. Right? So at that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, I can just ask for it.
Yep.
I found out later on that they're not doing you a favor. They have to give it to you if you ask.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So what's the implication there? So we heard that story, okay, and I can relate to that as well, because I've often gone and forgotten my card, which gives me the member discount.
Right.
But fortunately now they'll link it technology links it to the phone number. But
yes.
So how do we relate to that kind of story? You're talking to me, you're telling me the story as Robert.
Mm-hmm.
How does Paul relate to that message?
So Paul relates to it in several ways. What's the meaning inside of this? One meaning might be, oh my gosh, we're all doing things on autopilot, or we've been given information about what possibilities exist, and we've just taken them as gospel. We've taken them as concrete truth. And it is not until we see somebody else daring to step past or doing something that for them is normal, but for us is a wow moment, that we realize we can ask for what we want. We can ask for things outside of what has normally been provided to us. And when you do ask, you will get some different results. You might even find out that they're supposed to help you. They're just waiting for you to ask.
That's certainly the case. And I think the bridge there is, okay, if we just stopped at that you asked for the discount, I think, we can relate to that. But it's that next step where you explained why that was important. I think that really drives home the story.
Absolutely.
I've got to share this with you because, you mentioned a bit about the you just need to ask. So I used to grow up playing cricket, and with things like a caught behind dismissal, the umpire needed to be asked if the batsman was out before they could get the batsman out. So if nobody asked if it was out, the umpire wouldn't give him out. So I was playing, can't remember the level, but I was bowling, and the ball went through to the wicket keeper. And so I thought, nothing of it. I was starting to walk back to my mark, ready to bowl the next ball. And the fielder standing next to me just wanders up to the umpire and he goes, umpire, how was that? And the umpire says, I was waiting for one of you guys to ask if he was out. And up goes the finger, and the batsman looks up and goes, what? And he's out. But the question was, we needed to ask. We missed out on something because we didn't ask the question there. Yeah. So, I love that. I love the way you sort of take something very, I guess I'm going to say plain, and I was tempted to say boring, but plain, but every day. And
every day.
Taken it into and showed us how that's an important message for our business.
Yep. So there's another small framework. I've given you two essentially already. So challenge, catalyst, change. There's another one that I employ called moment, meaning, and message. And so what is the moment? What's the experience that happened? What did it mean? What did you get from that? And now what is the message that you're going to share with your audience member, your participant, whoever's in front of you? And why that's important is I can share with you information, and you just pull this out via my supermarket story. I can share information with you, but why do I need to know that? How can I apply that? What is it that you want me to? I know what I can interpret from it, but what is the message that you want me to hear from that? And so the first one, challenge, catalyst, and change, I can use that for maybe a product demonstration. This was the challenge. This was when the company realized what was going on. And this is the change that we implemented this process. But the one where you're talking about the moment, the meaning, and the message, that's now a conversation. That is an inspirational delivery that I've just dropped in your space. So what's happened? What did it mean? Or what did we extrapolate from that? What was the lesson that we learned? And now what is it that we want to share with everybody as a result of that experience?
Mm-hmm. So that's really, really important. Look, I think one of the things we said early on when we first started this talking to this today was that a lot of people think they don't have an inspirational story or a story that matters or something to tell. But you've given us some very practical, relatable examples of everyday, I don't like using the word, but I'm going to call them boring in inverted commas, things that happen to us that we've taken and can explain to share that story. And, this is why that moment of what happened here matters. And here's the next step. Here's the value to you. So we all have those stories. we have we can't say that we don't have the stories. We all have them.
Yep.
We just need the framework and I guess the courage to start practicing and telling those stories.
Well, framework and the courage and the willingness to capture them regularly. There's an author by the name of Matthew Dix. He wrote a book called Story Worthy. And in that book, he does a practice every day where he sits at the end of the day and he gets a sheet of paper and he writes down 5 experiences that he had that day. It doesn't matter what the experiences are. It could be I went to the gas station and when I got there, I decided I wanted to go inside to get a bag of Cheetos or potato chips. Okay, that's one experience. The next experience, I was driving by the library and I saw a lady with a child in a stroller, or maybe in your country they call it a pram. I don't know. I know they used to call it that where I'm from. And she was crossing the street. That's another experience. He draws a line down the middle of the paper, and then on the right side, he says, "What's the lesson that I learned, or what's the meaning that I could derive? What resonated from that experience today?" What that does is it gives you regular practice of capturing what would seem to be, and maybe this is the word you were looking for, what would seem to be mundane moments.
Yes.
Right? What would seem to be regular, everyday, would otherwise be nondescript or unnoticeable moments. And you assign meaning to them. And when you assign meaning to those moments regularly, it now becomes easier for you to pull from a pool of experiences because you've become more observant. You've assigned more meaning to these experiences. And the more that you do that is the more that you've got a pool that you can pull from and on a moment's notice.
Mm-hmm. So we've all got stories. There's a framework that you've got that our listeners here, business owners, they can get hold of by reaching out to you. But there's also, I guess, intention there to start paying attention to the stories, the mundane things that happen and how they are the story that you need to tell or could tell. So there's some actions there, and I think we've moved away from the fact that we don't have those big dramatical life-changing events. We've got so many relatable stories in everything that happens to us that we can share. We just have to get started. So getting started, Robert, what's the way that you would encourage business owners to get started on this storytelling process?
For business owners, I would recommend capturing at least one personal story that relates to why you're passionate about this business or what it does. And I would also grab your origin story, being clear on what was the impetus or why you started this business. Where was the origination of the idea and the business itself? So if you have those two personal stories or those two stories, it does a couple of things. Number one, it shares with people why you are connected to this business, why you believe in this, why you're passionate and convicted about this. It shares that with people. And then the origin story shares with people. It gives them some credibility, some trust building in the business. It's not just the business didn't start just to make money. They're not only concerned about a paycheck or revenue. They're concerned about social value. They're concerned about social good. There's a community value that they have. This is why the business exists and what it pursues. So start with those two, and then you've got other stories that I can work with you on, brand stories, strategic stories that you can utilize to continue to grow trust with your audience.
Yeah. So good. So two very good starting points there. And as you mentioned, Robert, the best way to make this happen and get confident with the process is to reach out and get the skills and training from somebody that does this for a living, such as Robert Kennedy III. Robert, how do we get in touch with you to start, really improving and making this process work for us? How do we make storytelling more a natural part of what we do?
Love it. RobertKennedy3.me is the easiest place to go. My websites are there. You can click on one of the buttons and get all of these social channels that I'm on. LinkedIn is easy. but robertkennedy3.me is the easiest place. And if you are interested in taking part in an event, the Story Vault Remix that we have coming up, you can go to storyvaultremix.com and be a part of that.
Fantastic. As always, we'll put the links to Robert's resources and his website in the show notes and also on the businessbehindyourbusiness.com website for you to check out. Look, and if you've got a lot out of today, if you've learned something today, then don't keep it to yourself. Tell somebody, tell them your story about how you've learned about how to tell your story, because another business owner, they need to hear this as well. So don't be selfish. Share the knowledge, share the growth, and encourage another business owner to move forward with this. Robert, I've had a lot of fun today. I've really enjoyed talking with you, listening to what you've said, and it's sort of got me out of that shell of thinking, I don't really have anything exciting to talk about. But you've given me some great starting points to start telling my story in so many more ways, and I'm really grateful for that. Thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and look, encourage people to go and check out your resources, those frameworks. They're just a starting point, but get in touch and start working with Robert to really start telling your story and getting people to understand why you do what you do.
Fantastic. Pleasure being here, Paul.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Business Behind Your Business. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and valuable for your business journey. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with fellow business owners who could benefit, and send in your burning questions because we love hearing from you. Missed any of our previous episodes or looking for additional resources to help grow your business? Head over to our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. There you'll find our full archive of past episodes, along with show notes, transcripts, and links to valuable resources mentioned in each episode. Your journey to business success continues at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep building the business of your dreams.